So, looking at Book 7, we start with one of the most famous things, perhaps the most famous thing in all of Plato's works, and that's the story of the cave, which is a very simple story, um, but it is in a certain context. And the context is this theory of reality. And if you keep this theory of reality in mind, then you'll have a much richer understanding of what this story or allegory of the cave is actually about. It's about going from the darkness into the light. It's about going from the left hand side of this theory of this inventory of all the things that exist to the right hand side. It's about going from error to truth. It's about going from illusion to true insight into the nature of the world. So this familiar idea of we get from Plato of these human beings who are stuck in a cave looking at shadows on a wall, who finally are able to escape from the darkness of the cave into the sunlight, is a metaphor for going from the left hand side of this line, which is itself a metaphor, I guess, to the right hand side, from darkness and error into truth. And for Plato, that means going from thinking that physical things are what's real to going to the idea that ideas and concepts are real. That's absolutely crucial. That's what it means to get out of the cave. So the cave analogy or the cave allegory is an allegory of metaphysics. A metaphysics is a theory of what is truly real. There's not one metaphysics, right? There are different metaphysics. That's the whole idea. Let's say, let's speak up for Thrasymachus. His metaphysics would be material things are what is real. I would say he's probably a materialist. He believes that what's real is what we can touch and see and hear. I'm. He never says this, but I'm filling in for him. And this would justify his idea of how we should live. If material things are what is real, well, material things are what my desires are desires for. And so, if material things are what is real, I should be led by my desires. That's how living in reality. Plato has a different, or let's say Socrates. He has a different metaphysics. Ideal things, concepts, are what is real. Well, if ideal things, thinkable things, are what is real, what is truly real, only my reason, my rational part, only my reason, my rational part, my thinking part puts me in concept with them. That is, ideal things, concepts. So, I think he says, I should be led by my rational part. Otherwise, and here it is. This is the whole justification for the philosophers ruling the city and for the rational part ruling over the self. The idea that if you are led by your desires and thinking only the physical things around you are important and real, or real and therefore important, then you're living in the darkness of the cave. And people do that. They live in the darkness of the cave. Plato knows that. But how? sorry that is. How pathetic, really, it would be to choose that over living in truth. Being just is being led by your rational part, Plato says, and that's because the rational part puts you in contact with what is true. So ultimately, we see that Plato's theory of justice and how to live depends upon a theory of what is truly real, a metaphysical theory, and that theory is that ideal things or concepts are what is real. So, to leave the cave, the famous allegory in the beginning of Book 7, to leave the cave is to progress from thinking that physical nature is the most real thing to the view that ideal thinkable objects are most real. That's what it means to come into the sun. So it all depends on this. The philosophers who are called the guardians. They should rule the city because they know truth. To let any other class rule would be, to a certain extent, to live in error and darkness. To put it in a slightly different way, on the level of the soul, the rational part of the soul, the individual self, deserves to rule over the rest of that self because it, reason, knows the truth and is in contact with what is truly real.